Elon, are you on?
I've just invited you to speak, Elon.
Okay. Well,
There we go.
well, Kathy just asked me to talk, although I'm not sure that I have all that much to say. I mean, I don't spend a massive amount of time on cryptocurrency, but I guess I still own a bunch of Dogecoin, and SpaceX owns a bunch of Bitcoin, but I really don't spend a lot of time thinking about crypto.
So we had we've had this debate on our last spaces with you, Elon, and thank you for joining. I mean, what I love about the way you process is, if people come to you with facts and figures that that make sense, and you can, it adds to your understanding of the world. You'll integrate it into your thinking. And I'm hoping that Bitcoin, I don't know if you heard Art Laffer. So Professor Art Laffer was just on right before you. I don't know if you heard much, but to have my professor, who's he is one of the world's leading experts in monetary theory, educated by Robert Mundell, who won a Nobel Prize in monetary theory. He is Art. Art is 83. Sorry, I know you always say your age and you'd prefer to say it yourself, but Art is 83 years old, and I have never seen him more excited. And I was a student. I've known him all these years. Than he is now about Bitcoin and how that's going to transform the world, take us out of this horror show of profligate and uncontrolled monetary and fiscal policies.
Yes, I mean, I am alarmed by the national debt, especially national debt, including obligations like Medicare, Social Security, and whatnot. And it's a truly staggering number that I think starts to approach when you include all government debt and obligations. I think it's on the order of 100 trillion. That's roughly 3 times the size of our economy. It does seem as though the temptation to dilute the currency will be something that the politicians cannot resist.
And Bitcoin is an insurance policy against that, I think. But
I
Art,
agree totally. It's private money that will allow people an alternative other than the government currency.
right. And it is the most secure, it's the most decentralized, transparent, secure network out there. So, and Elon, when I asked you to come on, I think the really exciting thing for us after 10 years plus of doing research on Bitcoin is today the SEC made ARKB, our spot Bitcoin ETF, our partner 21 shares, and our spot Bitcoin ETF effective after a very long journey.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is I think a very well engineered. It's sort of engineered scarcity, and it's a like very well written software for engineered scarcity. It's not great for a transaction, as a high volume transaction system, but it is very good for engineered scarcity, kind of like gold or something like that. In fact, I think it was originally called BitGold in the evolution of the idea. So that seems to be where it's what its main use is. I guess there is some talk of like the Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin.
I think we're hoping that X, as it becomes a payments ecosystem, starts to integrate. I mean, the Lightning Network is doing some remarkable things and gaining a lot of traction. We've done a Bitcoin brainstorm on the convergence between Bitcoin and artificial intelligence, and the Lightning Network is playing a big role in that.
Okay, I've only heard of it. seen it in action.
Elon, Jack, who's a speaker on stage, is an expert on it. If you want to ask him any questions.
What's up, Elon? I would say Matt as well. I see Matt
Now,
Morales on there too.
Matt Carolla is. This is the blue Matt. I met him in Uruguay, a core developer. Very excited to have you on as well, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate all the work that everyone's been doing on all these ETFs. And I'm looking forward to, from a developer, I've been working on Bitcoin for more than a decade, well, more than a decade now. Now working full time on Lightning, so trying to make Bitcoin payments as much a thing as we can. But I'm really looking forward to all of the funds. Bitcoin, unlike nearly every other cryptocurrency, doesn't have any kind of foundation. There's no fees that people are paying directly to developers. And there's no fund to fund people doing great work, like all the work that ARK's been doing on making Bitcoin go more and more mainstream by bringing the developers to keep this software running, because ultimately Bitcoin is powered by a software project, and there's a lot of work that has to go into all of that engineering. And we've seen several of the Bitcoin ETF offerings now offering to fund Bitcoin development directly. Of course, ARK also has directly funded a lot of work for Bitcoin, not necessarily software, but research and a lot of really important work. So I'm really happy with where these things are going, just from the perspective of how much more funding this is going to bring to the Bitcoin ecosystem broadly, and continue to improve things like Bitcoin payment technologies.
Yeah, Elon. So I brought up X. Well, Truth in Advertising. We own it in our venture fund, and we're excited about the plans you have for it. We want to do our part. This is part of what today is all about. We want to break news on X, and I think more and more companies and people will break news on X, so hence ARKB. But also, you wanted to be the everything app, and I know on this call there are a lot of people who have a strong view about how quickly you'd be able to proliferate that throughout the world with Bitcoin as part of the infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm open to the idea of using Bitcoin. I mean, it's like I said, it's of the various things that I think about Bitcoin very little. So, but I've thought about monetary systems a lot, and the actual practicalities of exchanging money, or money is really just data. It's information in a database, and it basically, money is an information system for labor allocation. So, but most people think of money as having power in and of itself. But you can obviously um, run some basic thought experiments and say, if you have $1 trillion on it, and you're marooned on an island, it's useless because there's no labor to allocate. Only once you have some complexity and you have people with different skills, then you need sort of an information system for labor allocation and to shift obligations across time. But it's remarkable how many people think money has power in and of itself, because that is their experience, certainly in any advanced economy. For example, if you were to say, like, let's spend more money on healthcare. I'm like, okay, well, you can't instantaneously change the number of doctors. Doctors take roughly 30 years to for a new doctor, a baby to be born, and ultimately be educated and become a doctor. You can't just throw money at a system and suddenly have get doctors from a magic doctor factory. So you can over time change the number of doctors if you change the incentive structure for doctors, but you cannot, just adding money to a system does not create more doctors. But people weirdly sometimes think that is the case, because they see what is immediately in front of them, but they do not see two or three layers deep. In fact, like, I mean, this is why inflation is such an effective means of taxation, is because inflation is a few layers deep, and most people simply see one or two layers deep. But like, so if something is like 3 layers away, that they simply don't realize it, and they will in fact be angry at the store for the prices going up, even though it is in fact the government that has caused the prices to go up.
That's why we have to get the government out, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, for any given system, whatever the incentive structure is, whatever the incentives are, that's that's what will happen, and then it should be no surprise if you incent something that it will happen. It would be weird if you incent something and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Within the context of your companies, Elon, SpaceX, and Tesla, like what was the rationale behind using Bitcoin in the treasury? And is it something that you've kind of backed off of, or is it something that you're amenable to kind of more broadly?
well, I mean, we did make some prominent purchases of Bitcoin. Um, at Tesla, we just became a bit concerned that the big changes in the ratio of dollars to Bitcoins, that value ratio was changing too much. So in case we needed the working capital, it would be better for us not to have Bitcoin. Um, and Now SpaceX still has most of its Bitcoin because SpaceX did not anticipate any working capital issues, or potential working capital risks. Um, and and yeah, and I was at one point it really seemed like the use of electricity for Bitcoin was on the margins really being quite a lot of dirty electricity. And I know people have got all these you know rebuttals to high CO2 energy being used for Bitcoin, but like there was at one point, like I think an entire power station and coal mine in China, that was a truly gigantic one that was responsible for a massive amount of Bitcoin mining. Now I believe that has now been shut down, but I think that actually constituted some insane amount of Bitcoin hashing at one point. So I think things have gotten better with electricity usage for Bitcoin hashing. It's still a little bit of a concern, but it seems to be not as serious of a concern as it was in the past.
That's analogous to me arguing that electric vehicles are bad because they're powered by a coal power plant. Like I think you have to divorce the source of the electricity from the actual fundamental good that spending energy to secure the Bitcoin network produces. And that like the the thing that Kathy and Art are talking about is that, hey, here's a currency that a government can't control. It can't control because you have basically a decentralized distributed denial of service system, preventing it from being kind of controlled and co-opted. And the cost of
No,
that is the energy you spend.
I don't think they're exactly analogous. So in this case of the gigantic coal mine and coal power plant in China, its sole purpose was Bitcoin mining, and it was really not something that would be used for anything other than Bitcoin mining. In fact, when that plant went offline, there was a massive drop in hashes per second for Bitcoin. That's how you could tell it was that plant. Um, so that's it's when it's that is problematic. It went too far at a certain point. Now, like I said, I think at this point it is better. And when you look at electricity usage, when it's not being pushed beyond reasonable bounds, electricity production is increasingly sustainable, coming from wind and solar, with buffering, with battery pack buffering. Um, so
Elon, if you don't back the monetary units with work, something that actually takes energy, as opposed to keystroke, I just don't know how you can build a better system that actually pegs fiat currency around the world without some type of proof of work mechanism.
no, I'm not saying you shouldn't have some proof of work mechanism. Um, uh, I'm just saying that, and look, I don't want to, I'm on this call because Kathy asked me to be on this call, not because I'm wish to argue about Bitcoin. And so
No,
I'll
but
simply
I
depart this
still do
call.
think that this is an important.
If we get into Bitcoin, annoying Bitcoin arguments, I will sign off.
I think Elon, you kind of raising some of these concerns, I think part of the education process for understanding Bitcoin. This is exactly why we have these conversations. We don't necessarily need to go back and forth, but maybe I see Harry's actually on the line. He is a Bitcoin miner, perhaps kind of setting up the case for just energy and Bitcoin and how you're effectively converting electricity into a hard asset. Perhaps might help as a framing.
Hey, Yassine, thanks. Great to be here. Congratulations, Kathy, the entire ARC team. We've actually been through our own SEC process in the last 2 or 3 weeks as well, and got approval to take Grid public. So
Oh, congratulations.
thank you.
Yay.
We're in good company with you, to say the least. I want to address just the energy thing in general, because I actually think Elon sort of is right about the more fundamental heuristic, which is that Bitcoin provides a revenue stream to energy generation assets that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so on the one hand, that can create, perverse negative dynamics and externalities when it comes to a one-off coal plant or several one-off coal plants that are getting shuttered, whether regulatorily or financially, and can breathe a second life into assets that that maybe we as a species would argue against. I think that's true, and I think that that's a negative. I think that the positive tailwind that Bitcoin mining as a totally orthogonal purchaser of energy actually carries the positive day net net, because there's an enormous amount of opportunity. If you look at the interconnection pipeline in the US, for example, there are wind and solar farms that are waiting multiple years just to connect to the power grids to be able to enter their renewable energies into our markets, and they're unable to, whether for regulatory reasons or system engineering reasons. And so you're able to bring a Bitcoin mine to that generation asset and start clicking revenue much earlier. It means that the ability to finance these projects is significantly expanded. It means that the infrastructure costs that get passed back to ratepayers get to be lower because those revenues get brought to market much sooner. And it does a lot less from an eminent domain. Where do you bring the lines? Those types of environmental and regional issues, those all get diminished as well. The only other thing I just want to add and shout out is just that this is not a US story. This is a global story. And there are places all over the world that desperately need enormously more electricity. And so we believe, and there are companies out there like Eric Hirschman and Gridless Compute who are bringing net new electricity on a clean hydroelectric basis to communities that desperately need it. They're taking kerosene offline, they're taking hydroelectric online, and they're doing so on the back of proof of work in Bitcoin. And so we're enormously excited about what Bitcoin means as a bootstrapping mechanism for more clean electricity for more people on the planet.
Can I just say for a
And
second that I think Elon's points should be taken very seriously? The electricity argument is a detailed argument there, but the existence of Bitcoin, the limitations of Bitcoin, the programming of Bitcoin are the wonders of this coin, and really will be served the whole monetary system of the world. Now, the transactional nature of a Bitcoin is also true, but it's the same thing in gold. What you had here is the Bitcoin will be the reserves, if you will, of a transactional system that will include other entities with Bitcoins like a reserves in the bank. That's where it's really going to go, Elon. And I think you're totally correct that the electricity is a sideshow to this. And the transactional developments that will occur are really where we'll get a new world money. But the Bitcoin is the monetary base, if you will, of that, just like gold used to be.
ARC actually wrote a really great research paper a number of years ago around Bitcoin's ability to fund clean energy, like Harry was talking to, that I would encourage people to go look up. And in fact, Tesla was a part of helping bring a pilot plant to demonstrate that and how Bitcoin can help fund solar energy using some of their battery technology.
Who wrote that, Matt?
ARC did, in fact.
We did.
With Block.
Oh, ARC. Oh, the one we did. Oh, yes. And Elon, this was on. We did, remember, with Jack Dorsey. We did the B word. It was called the B word. It was a 5-hour seminar that you, Jack, and I think Steve Lee kicked off. And we spent a lot of time talking about about this use case.
Okay.
I actually have one question. I don't know how much time you have, Elon, but I would love to know. You've been clear about the need for us to be an interplanetary species. What money would you use on Mars?
Well, I guess it probably would make sense to use some kind of cryptocurrency on Mars. Now, you couldn't use Bitcoin because the reconciliation time is too long. Like the Mars at times is Mars can be like 20 light minutes away. So no, you know, not an easy. Difficult. There have to be some localized thing on Mars.
Yeah. So I know some very important movers and shakers in the community are here. I'm sure they are already thinking about ways to make sure that Bitcoin makes its way to Mars. I'm positive.
Yeah, it's just like I said, you know, at times you're well, and when you Mars is on the other side of the sun, and I mean, reasonable a sort of rough way to think about it is Earth is 8 light minutes from the sun, Mars is roughly 1.5 times as far away from the sun as the as the Earth, and so at times you're on the order of 20 minutes, but sometimes even like you can't go right through the sun, so you'd have to be bank shot it past the sun. So probably they might be like 23, 24 minutes at speed max speed of light. So anyway, so I think you could perhaps use Bitcoin to some degree, but it'd be difficult to use it a lot, I think, on Mars.
Luckily, some of the other technologies like Lightning would work totally great without latency. You'd have to have a localized Lightning network like you were talking about. Now, you wouldn't be able to mine on Mars. You can't split mining across the Earth and Mars, but
Correct. No, I think the Mars would have something local. I mean, that I hope we have that problem to deal with. If we have that problem to deal with, then really civilization has advanced dramatically. So right now we've not yet been able to put a single person on Mars. Just a few robots at extremely high prices. So in order to have any, in order to pass one of the Fermi Great Filters, which is, are you a one planet species or a multi-planet species? We have to have a self-sustaining civilization on Mars, where the acid test being, if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason whatsoever, that the city on Mars does not die out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you, Elon. I know you, if you want to hang out and continue with the Bitcoin conversine, that.
Hello?
Or you could, yes, Kathy, you're back.
Yeah, did I get cut out? I don't know what happened there.
You blanked out for just a second.
Okay, what I was saying is I don't know how much time. I mean, I'd love to keep batting back and forth Bitcoin. I know your time was short, but I wanted to thank you for joining us. This has been awesome. Spaces is awesome, and we're going to be doing a lot more on Spaces. So thank you.
All right, sounds good. Good to.
Great. Thank you. Okay.